Imagine waking up one morning and the government tells you you are no longer a citizen, not because you did anything wrong, not because you broke any law, but simply because of your religion, your name, your family. This happened. It was real, and it destroyed the lives of 6 million innocent people. This is the story of the Holocaust. Stay with me, because every single person on this earth needs to know this story. Before we continue, I want to say something. We spent days researching and putting this together because these 6 million lives deserve to be told right. If this video moves you, please like, share, and subscribe. It means everything to us. Now, let us tell you their story.
Jewish people had lived in Europe for over 2,000 years. They were not strangers. They were not outsiders. They were Germans, Poles, French, Hungarian, fully part of their societies. They were doctors, teachers, musicians, shopkeepers, soldiers who had fought in wars for their countries. In 1933, there were around 9 million Jewish people living across Europe. They had families, homes, businesses, and futures. They were ordinary people living ordinary lives. And in the eyes of the Nazi government, that was about to change forever. To understand how the Holocaust happened, we must go back to 1918. Germany had just lost World War I. The country was completely broken. Millions of soldiers were dead. Germany was forced to sign a peace agreement that humiliated them. They lost land, lost their army, and had to pay billions in penalties. The economy collapsed, people were starving, unemployment was everywhere. Germany was desperate, angry, and looking for answers. And into this broken nation walked Adolf Hitler. He was a powerful speaker. He told Germans, your problems are not your fault. Your problems are because of the Jewish people. This was a lie, a total lie. But desperate people believed it.
In January 1933, Adolf Hitler became the leader of Germany, legally, through an election. But once he had power, he destroyed Germany's democracy. He banned other political parties. He took control of newspapers and radio stations. He created a secret police called the Gestapo that could arrest anyone at any time. Fear spread everywhere. And his main message never changed. Jewish people are the enemy. He used words like rats, parasites, and disease to describe them. This is called dehumanization, making people seem less than human. It is always the first step toward mass violence. When you stop seeing someone as a human being, it becomes easier to hurt them. In 1935, Hitler passed laws called the Nuremberg laws. These laws officially said Jewish people were no longer German citizens. They could not vote, they could not marry non-Jewish Germans, they could not be teachers, doctors, or work in government. Jewish children were removed from German schools. Jewish shops had to put signs in their windows, and Germans were told not to shop there. Step by step, Jewish people were being cut off from society, isolated, alone. And most people went along with it because each step seemed small. That is one of the most important lessons of the Holocaust. Evil does not always arrive all at once. It creeps in slowly.
On the night of November 9th, 1938, the Nazis organized attacks on Jewish communities across Germany and Austria. In one single night, over 7,500 Jewish shops were smashed. Over 1,400 synagogues, Jewish houses of prayer, were burned to the ground. Jewish homes were destroyed. Jewish people were beaten in the streets. Around 100 people were killed, and 30,000 Jewish men were arrested and taken to concentration camps. The streets were covered in broken glass from shattered shop windows, and so this night became known as Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. The whole world saw it happen, but most countries did nothing. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, starting World War II.
Poland was home to 3.3 million Jewish people. Now, the Nazis controlled them all. First, they forced all Jewish people to wear a yellow Star of David on their clothes so they could be identified at all times. Then, they began forcing Jewish people into ghettos, small walled-off sections of cities. The Warsaw Ghetto was the largest. Over 400,000 people were forced into just 1.3 square miles. Entire families lived in single rooms. There was barely any food. People were given less than half of what a person needs to survive. Disease spread. Thousands died every month. The Nazis were not just imprisoning people, they were letting them die. Slowly, deliberately. The Nazis built 6 main death camps, all in occupied Poland. Auschwitz-Birkenau, Treblinka, Sobibor, Belzec, Chelmno, Majdanek. These were not prisons. They were not work camps. They were built for one purpose: to kill as many people as fast as possible. Jewish families from all across Europe were loaded onto trains, so packed they could not move, and sent to these camps. Many died on the journey. When they arrived, a Nazi doctor stood on the platform. He pointed left or right. Right, you might be used for forced labor. Left, you walk directly to the gas chambers. The elderly, children, mothers with babies, almost always sent left. They were told, go take a shower. They were given soap. They walked into a room. The doors locked, and they were killed with poison gas. At Auschwitz alone, over 1.1 million people were murdered. The bodies were burned. The Nazis kept careful records. They were proud of their efficiency. This is the hardest truth of the Holocaust. It was not done in anger. It was cold, calculated, organized, by ordinary people, following orders. Even in the darkest time, there were people who chose to do the right thing. Oskar Schindler was a German businessman. He was not Jewish, but as he watched what was happening, something changed inside him. He used his factory to protect Jewish workers from being sent to death camps. He spent his entire fortune bribing Nazi officials. By the end of the war, he had saved over 1,200 lives. Irina Sendler was a Polish nurse who worked inside the Warsaw Ghetto. She convinced parents to give her their children, parents who knew they were going to die. She smuggled over 2,500 Jewish children out of the ghetto, hidden in boxes, bags, and under floorboards. She wrote each child's name on a piece of paper and buried it in a jar in her garden, hoping one day families could be reunited. She was caught, tortured, and sentenced to death. She escaped and kept going. These people prove, even in the worst moments of history, every single person has a choice. By early 1945, Germany was losing the war. As Allied forces got closer, the Nazis tried to hide their crimes. They burned documents, they blew up the crematoria, and they forced surviving prisoners on death marches, making them walk hundreds of miles in freezing cold with no food, shooting anyone who fell. On January 27, 1945, Soviet soldiers opened the gates of Auschwitz. Inside, they found around 7,000 survivors, barely alive, too weak to walk. The soldiers were not prepared for what they saw. Later, Allied commanders brought in local German civilians and forced them to walk through the camps. Many Germans said they did not know. The images went around the world, and humanity finally understood what had been done. After the war, the world put the top Nazi leaders on trial in the German city of Nuremberg. For the first time in history, world leaders were held accountable for crimes against humanity. Many of the defendants said the same thing. I was just following orders. The court rejected this completely. It said some things are so clearly evil that no human being can use that excuse. 12 were sentenced to death. Others received long prison sentences. The Nuremberg trials gave the world a new rule. Genocide is a crime. leaders can be held accountable, and I was just following orders is never enough.
The Holocaust did not begin with gas chambers. It began with words, with jokes, with propaganda, with small laws that seemed harmless. Step by step, hatred was allowed to grow, and silence gave it permission. Today, Holocaust denial is rising. Anti-Semitism is growing. Hate speech is spreading. The lessons of the Holocaust are not history. They are a warning for right now. When you see any group of people being called animals, being blamed for everything, being isolated by laws, speak up, because that is always how it starts. Remember the 6 million. Share this video. Learn their names. Tell their stories. As Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel said, to forget the dead is to kill them a second time. Never again. For anyone, anywhere, ever.